Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is May 23rd, 2022, and I welcome you to the Alpharetta City Council meeting and public hearing this evening. We'll note for the record that item C under public hearing will not be heard this evening. The applicant has deferred. That was V-21-33/Sitco 174 North Main Street Variance. I don't see a date when it's been deferred until further notice. Just wanted to note that. I will call this meeting to order. I'll note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for except for Councilman Binder, and he called me a little while ago, said he was running probably about 30 minutes late. So he will be joining us soon. And as always, we begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able, please join and stand us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, and the consent agenda consists of two items. First is the council meeting minutes from the meeting of May 16th, 2022. Second is the alcoholic beverage license applications, of which there is only one, and that is PH-22-AB-143325 Alpharetta Package LLC DBA Liquor Emporium 3325 Old Milton Parkway, Suite B, Alpharetta, Georgia 30005. Is there any council members that would like to remove anything from the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion to approve by Councilman Hypes, second by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously. So we'll move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting, and that will begin with item MP-22-02/CU-22-01, Bright Path Academy of Georgia. Director Cook, I believe you have this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first item is shown to you on the screen, and the applicant, Bright Path Academy of Georgia, is requesting a master plan amendment and a conditional use to allow an academic school use for Bright Path Academy in an 11,150 square foot existing office building, and it's 1.4 acres. It was zoned several years ago for up to 10,000 square feet per acre, so the building exists. An amendment to the professional turf supply master plan is requested to add the proposed use. Property is located at 12395 Morris Road. And I'll show you what that building looks like. So it's existing, and there are no site plan changes that are proposed. Property is zoned CUP. It's the professional turf supply master plan developed in '06. It is one-story office building. Surrounding properties are zoned OP and CUP from the Windward Master Plan. And a low-rise office building occupies the adjacent parcel that's located to the north. And to the south is the Little Sunshine Playhouse and Preschool Daycare Facility, so similar uses within close proximity. Bright Path Academy of Georgia is a not-for-profit school for children with special needs. The Academy will provide educational services for students in grades 6 through 12 and will follow a typical school calendar year. The students will comprise mostly of nonverbal children with an autism diagnosis and sensory processing disorders. And initially, they expect enrollment will be approximately 10 students beginning in August of this year if they're approved, with an eventual student population of around 30 children. School hours of operation will range from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday. And the student to teacher population is going to be one teacher to 3 students. And the draft floor plan that they provided utilizes a large space interior to the site for workout exercise room. They have a space located in the building, a rather large space. But they also have an area outside that's north of the building, so there is some outside area that could be converted for outdoor activity. We did look at the traffic, and staff estimates that the private school would generate about 15 p.m. peak hour trips, so a low trip generator. And we had the community zoning information meeting on April 13th. We didn't have any comments at that meeting. We also took this item to the Planning Commission on May the 5th, and staff recommended approval subject to 5 conditions. We didn't have anybody speak during the public comment at the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval subject to the 5 conditions, which are, number 1, add school academic to the professional turf supply master plan as a conditional use. 2, school academic use shall be added as a conditional use at 12395 Morris Road and limited to no more than 11,150 square feet. 3, conditional use approval shall be limited to Bright Path Academy of Georgia. No additional school academic businesses or subleasing shall be permitted within the approved space. 4, in the future, if an outdoor recreational area is contemplated, it shall be limited to the north side of the building, and the 50-foot buffer adjacent to the residential property shall be maintained. And 5, prior conditions of approval related to the professional turf supply master plan shall remain in effect. And that concludes the Planning Commission recommendation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Do we have any questions from council? Thank you, Director Cook. No one seems to have any questions at this time. Would the applicant like to come forward now?
Good evening. My name is Thane Brooks, and I'm the person that's responsible for creating Bright Path.
Were you going to tell us anything about your application?
Everything's wonderful. No, so we're a brand new startup, and this is for, again, grades 6 through 12. You're talking a low amount of children that are going to be accessing this school. You're looking probably at a maximum at the most 30 kids at any one point in time. These kids are nonverbal. They have a lot of sensory processing issues. I have a background where I own Therapy Land, which is a special needs therapy center, and I did that for my daughter, and this is the next step for her and for the community, and that's why I'm doing it.
Okay, thanks, sir. Any questions from council? Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
Not for this item, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this zoning application, now's your chance to do so. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I would offer a motion to approve MP-22-02/CU-22-01, Bright Path Academy of Georgia, including the 5 conditions presented by staff.
Was that Councilman Will the second? Okay. I wasn't looking. I couldn't tell for sure. So we do have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel and a second by Councilman Will, and that was to approve application MP-22-02/CU-22-01, Bright Path Academy of Georgia. Is there any conversation? Well, I'll just note that I appreciate someone stepping up into this service, because there's certainly a need within our community, and I appreciate your efforts, and I hope your daughter thrives there at the academy. That being said, there's no other comments. All those in favor of approving the application, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. So next item up on the agenda in the public hearing will be Z-22-02/V-22-08/116 and 126 North Main Street. Mr. Woodman, you have the honor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening, we have a rezoning and variance. The applicant proposes to rezone 1.43 acres from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to Downtown Mixed Use, DTMU, which would allow for the construction of 2 3-story mixed-use buildings. Within those buildings would include 32,000 square feet of office, 4,000 square feet of retail, 6,000 square feet of restaurant, and 4 for-sale condominium units. The development is also proposed within a 2-level structured parking deck. 116 North Main Street is on the city's contributing historic buildings list and is proposed to be saved with this application and reused as a restaurant. There is a variance request to reduce the setbacks for a dumpster enclosure. And I do have the location map on the overhead. The location is 116 and 126 North Main Street. It's on the west side of North Main Street across from the intersection with Cummings Street. Property represents 3 parcels of land with frontage on North Main Street and Violet Garden Walk. Violet Garden Walk is the right-of-way at the rear of the property. Surrounding uses, our Gracious Home is located to the east. There's a dentist office to the north. West of Main Townhome development is located to the west. And then the 100 North Main Street office project is under construction to the south of this property. The applicant's proposal is consistent with the future land use designation of the property, which is mixed use. As I mentioned, there is 1 variance request. There was another variance request related to a stream. It's been determined by city staff that that stream does not qualify for buffers. So that variance has been withdrawn. So the only variance is related to the dumpster enclosure. Just point that out to you on the site plan. So this is North Main Street. This is the applicant's driveway into the development. And then this is Violet Garden Walk at the rear of the property. So the dumpster in question is located at this location. It's about 20 feet off of Violet Garden Walk right away. The applicant has indicated that that dumpster would be screened with masonry enclosure as well as landscaping. One other thing of note before we get into the details of the site plan is there is a proposed road extension. So this is Cummings Street, which dead ends into North Main Street at this location. It's part of the 2015 Downtown Master Plan update. There are a variety of road connections throughout the downtown that were identified, and one of those being the Cummings Street extension. The idea was that Cummings Street was to extend through this property, impacted the property to the south, South Main Street, as well as this property to the north, and then tying in with Lily Garden Place. And I'll just bring this location map back. I can show that a little bit better. So this connection was identified in that master plan. Going back to the site plan, there are 2 3-story buildings. When this was originally submitted to the city, it was 4 stories. The applicant reduced both buildings to 3 stories in between or at the planning commission meeting. There's a 2-level parking deck, so the dark gray area here represents the lower portion of the parking deck, and then which has the lower portion of the parking deck has 97 parking spaces, and then there are 38 parking spaces on the upper portion of the deck. The deck has 2 separate points of access. So this is kind of similar to, if you remember 100 North Main Street, that also had a 2-level parking deck. Access to each level of the parking deck was from 2 different locations. Their upper was from North Main Street. The lower was from Violet Garden Walk. On this particular application, access to both the upper and lower portions of the parking decks is from the new driveway off of North Main Street. The original application that was submitted to us with regard to this request did show access to the lower portion of the parking deck from Violet Garden Walk through the West of Main subdivision. The applicant did make a change to bring that access in through North Main Street through their new driveway. We have two buildings here, Building A and Building B. A is the one with frontage on North Main Street. That building would consist of retail, restaurant, and office uses. Building B, which is closer to the adjacent residential, would have office and residential uses. And then, of course, 116 North Main Street, which is the sometimes referred to as the Violin Shop, that would be preserved on this property and reused as a restaurant. As I mentioned, access is shown through that future coming street extension, but this is not showing an extension. This is just showing a new driveway to the, providing access to the site off of North Main Street. The only, based on this plan, the only access that would be needed from the back side of the property is to the dumpster off of Violet Garden Walk. There are open space requirements for projects in the downtown. This site plan reflects approximately 7,000 square feet or 11% amenity space. The minimum requirement is 10%, so they are meeting the minimum requirement. Their application indicates that their open space is amenity space on rooftop terraces as well as the front plaza area here. There are some existing trees on the property, primarily hardwoods. The applicant's tree survey and assessment showed that the trees on the property were not in good condition. City arborists disagreed on a couple of the trees, and so we did make a recommendation for a resistograph assessment to be conducted on those trees. Those trees are shown right here along the north property line. There's a willow oak and I believe a water oak of substantial size. One's 46 inch, one's 37 inch. So our original recommendation was that the applicant conduct the resistograph, which would determine if there's decay within the tree or if the trees are hollow. And that if they were in good condition, of course, to save them, but if they were not, then they would not need to be saved. And I'll discuss that, come back to that condition, because that condition was changed by Planning Commission. And then the site plan does note that stormwater management would occur underneath the parking deck of this development. The applicant provided some renderings. The initial renderings that were submitted with the application do show the exterior materials and details for this development, and I'll just point those out to you. So at Planning Commission, the applicant staff recommended that the building height not exceed 3 stories and 46 feet, which is consistent with the development out at this location west of Main is 3 stories. The townhomes there are 3 stories, and then 100 North Main was also conditioned to 3 stories, 46 feet. So just showing you the exterior details and materials that they showed initially. When the applicant reduced the buildings to 3 stories, 46 feet, they were just showing massing here. So that's what you're seeing here. So they didn't bring the materials or details to the building. They also repositioned the building at the rear. That building previously sat here, so they've pushed it further away from the residential. But these are some of the massing renderings that they provided. So this is looking at the site from North Main Street. West of Main, townhomes sit to the back here. This is 100 North Main. This is on Lily Garden Place, so in the west of Main townhome development, looking towards North Main Street. So these are the 2 new buildings. This is 100 North Main Street, and this is the violin shop sitting here. So the purpose of this is really kind of showing the topography, how they've had to bring that road, that driveway down to get access to the lower portion of their deck. And this is just kind of a bird's eye view of the development over top of 100 North Main, looking down at the development. And this is the initial, the old elevation that they provided. Again, the original elevation or rendering that they provided showing more of the details on the building. The downtown consultant did review the initial elevations that were submitted. The applicant indicated that the style was mercantile mill architecture. Downtown consultant did have a few comments on that, felt that some of the aspects of the building were too modern. Some comments regarding the cornice treatment, the balcony railing and detailing not being consistent with the style that had been indicated, as well as a canopy being too large in scale. Go back to this rendering. Again, the buildings are, the applicant has brought the buildings down to 3 stories. First floor height, according to the applicant, is 18 feet, with the second and third floor both being 14 feet. Applicant provided a trip generation report. The buildings would generate 87 AM peak hour trips and 169 PM peak hour trips. Of course, staff reviewed the applicant's requests against the criteria for rezoning and variance. The proposed zoning, rezoning to downtown mixed use does meet the future land use designation of the property. And we were just recommending that if approved, we recommended those tree saves, which I'll address when we get to that particular condition. With regard to the variance, there is some hardship on the property. There's right-of-way on 3 sides of the property, as well as the applicant is saving a historic structure on the property. And the applicant did provide a citizen participation report, indicated that they had been contacted by several surrounding property owners. Concerns that were indicated by the applicant by those property owners was increased traffic, access from Violet Garden Walk, setbacks in landscaping on North Main Street and Violet Garden Walk, building architecture and height, uses in the rear building, and concerns over the coming street extension. Staff has received a number of emails from residents of West of Main as well with similar concerns. And then we did show this to the public at the Community Zoning Information Meeting on March 9th. And we also heard similar concerns at the CZIM. This item went to the Planning Commission on April 14th. It was tabled at that meeting, and the Planning Commission asked the applicant to work on a couple of the issues. They were specific to the stream buffer variance that we have now determined was not necessary. Also dealt with the tree and the building height. And so the applicant's item was reconsidered at the May 5th Planning Commission meeting. Applicant made some changes to the development. They reduced the height of the building down to 3 stories. They moved the rear building further to the north, away from West of Main. And then with regard to the tree saves, the applicant proposed, and here's a photograph of the 2 trees in question along that north property line. We went out and looked at those trees. City arborists did, as well as other staff went out to look at the trees. And then in place of saving those trees, the applicant provided this landscape plan, and they've indicated that they would provide 21 6-inch caliper trees with the initial planting on the site. So for recompense, we only require 4-inch caliper trees. So they're proposing to provide 21 trees at 6-inch caliper, so they would be larger at that initial plant. And then if they're not recompense trees, the minimum requirement is 2-inch caliper, and the applicant is proposing to do the remainder of the non-recompense trees in 3-inch caliper trees. So they're providing larger trees at initial planting. There were several public comments at both of those Planning Commission meetings in April and May. And most of those comments were in support of the applicant's development. As part of those comments, there were several concerns that were voiced. including additional traffic on Lily Garden Place and Violet Garden Walk. Concerns about those roads being too narrow to accommodate that traffic. Comment that the city should remove the Cummings Street extension from the downtown master plan. There were comments about moving the dumpster off of Violet Garden Walk. Comments about buildings should be no more than 3 stories with no occupiable space on those rooftops. The contractor for 100 North Main also made a comment at the last Planning Commission meeting in May, stating that he was in favor of the Cummings Street extension for that particular project. And then before we get into the Planning Commission recommendation, Planning Commission did ask the applicant at that May meeting to go ahead and move forward with conducting the resistograph assessment on the 2 trees and to explore moving the dumpster prior to tonight's City Council meeting. Ultimately, Planning Commission did recommend approval subject to staff's recommended conditions and accepting some changes requested by the applicant, and that was unanimous recommendation of approval. And with that, I'll go through the conditions. Condition 1 is the site plan specific condition, and that is related to the site plan prepared by AEC dated April 28th, 2022. Condition 2, maximum building height shall be no greater than 3 stories and 46 feet. Condition 3, Building B, that's the building at the rear of the development. Building B shall be limited to office and residential uses. Rooftop shall be limited to residential amenity space. 4, a 15-foot building setback shall be provided on North Main Street and shall include a minimum 5-foot landscape strip located outside of any easements. A 20-foot building setback as measured from the existing right-of-way shall be provided on Violet Garden Walk and shall include a minimum 15-foot landscape strip. Condition 5, architecture and materials shall be developed similar to the submitted renderings. And since that's a little bit unclear, since we do have 2 sets of renderings, we have the initial that was submitted with the initial application as well as the changes that were made to the renderings at Planning Commission. If you want to reflect back to the initial, not with respect to height, but with respect to the building materials and details that are shown here, I would recommend it after the word submitted renderings. If you want to specify, you could add prepared by Tracy Ward, dated February 28th, 2022. And then except for modifications.
Could you say that again?
Yes. So after the words submitted renderings, you could add, for clarity, prepared by Tracy Ward, dated February 28th, 2022. And then that sentence goes on to say, except for modifications required to comply with these conditions and in compliance with the Alpharetta Downtown Code, subject to approval by the downtown consultant and DRB. Openings in the parking deck wall shall include decorative screens similar to Teasley Place with final approval by DRB. Condition 6, historic building at 116 North Main Street shall be limited to office or restaurant use. Condition 7 deals with the restoration of 116 North Main Street, requires restoration to be complete by the first CO on the property. Condition 8, lot coverage shall not exceed 80%. Condition 9, parking deck shall be screened with a mix of landscape materials of varying heights with final approval by DRB. Condition 10, decorative lighting and trees shall be placed on the upper deck with final approval by DRB. Condition 11, although the road is not being built at this time, developer shall set aside land to accommodate future right-of-way for the Cummings Street extension as established in a development agreement. As depicted on the site plan prepared by AEC, dated 4/28/2022, area shall be maintained as green space until such time that it is improved for the road extension. Condition 12, final streetscape shall include decorative pedestrian lighting as approved by staff. Condition 13, deals with the street trees along in the planter along North Main Street and Violet Garden Walk. Condition 14 addresses the amenity space developed on the building rooftops and limits the use by the occupants, invitees, and guests of the development. Occupiable vertical structures shall be prohibited on rooftops. Green space amenity areas shall be planted with decorative landscape, hardscape, walls, and seating. The landscape shall include plant selections promoting the historic district. Condition 15, foundation plantings consisting of ornamental trees, shrubs, vines, and/or grasses shall be required for buildings with frontage along North Main Street, Cumming Street, and Violet Garden Walk. Condition number 16, this is the tree save condition, so Planning Commission did accept the applicant's change to this condition. So that condition reads, developer shall remove tree number 787, which is a 46-inch water oak, and tree number 788, 37-inch willow oak, and in exchange will plant 21 6-inch caliper overstory trees on the property at final development. Condition 17 requires a decorative paver apron at the project driveway as approved by staff. 18, 10-foot sidewalk requirement on Violet Garden Walk shall be reduced to 5 foot with the remaining 5 foot added to the landscape area. 19, developer shall construct a minimum 5-foot sidewalk along the Cumming Street extension connecting sidewalks on North Main Street and Violet Garden Walk as approved by staff. Condition 20, developer shall screen car headlights with sufficient parking deck wall height and landscaping. 21, developer shall improve project driveway access to North Main Street based on the recommendations of the traffic study with final approval by staff. Access modification shall require a GDOT permit, driveway permit, ice study, and signal modification for both existing and future GDOT improved condition. If a CO is anticipated post-GDOT construction, only final condition required. And condition number 22 was removed by the Planning Commission. And that concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Questions from council? Councilman Will?
I appreciate that. Thank you. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, the original design had the entrance different, which was going to cause traffic to go through Lily Garden. So we've moved the entrance to the other side, keeps the traffic from going through Lily Garden. But somehow I seem to recall, well, we're also now providing a buffer for future potential connecting of Cumming Street over through the property. Is that right? They have to leave a right-of-way space for that?
So yes, there's a condition number 11 that addresses the applicant providing the right-of-way and then leaving it as green space until such time that the extension.
What happens to the entrance if we do connect?
So if, according to the applicant, and I think the applicant probably can provide you with more details than I can, but according to the applicant, if the Cumming Street extension were to be constructed, they would have to move this entrance to the lower portion of the deck, which is where most of their parking spaces are, back to Violet Garden Walk.
We go back to the issue that everyone's having an issue with.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Hypes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Woodman, have we on other applications included anything about staging areas and where construction will be done? I'm all too familiar with 100 North Main. There was, for lack of a better term, encroachment onto private property or neighboring property, and it looks like some of the same confines may exist for this development. Have we ever put anything in the recommendations, or do we just rely on what the rules are?
I don't seem to recall any where we placed a specific condition about it. And we've had quite a bit of development in the downtown where properties are very tight. I don't recall any offhand. I know in that particular case that what you were referring to, the damage that was caused over here as a result of the construction at 100 North Main Street, they staged in the Violet Garden walk.
Yeah, I went out
right
and
away,
saw
as
it.
well as on private property.
Yeah, they
as
crushed
well.
their sidewalk.
Yes.
And it's a tight fit.
Yeah.
And they had to get a crane in there. And I would, if we just enforce the law, that's one thing. If we can condition it in addition to that, I would like to make sure that we protect those existing owners there. If construction's being done, that people don't go on their property.
Yeah, I mean, the applicant, is supposed to stage on their property. If they're needing to stage in the right-of-way, they're supposed to get a right-of-way permit from Public Works. In that particular case, they did not have that right-of-way permit.
Okay. Another question. In the staff report, there seemed to be, I don't know if disagreement's the right word, but maybe it is. The mercantile mill architecture, maybe some disagreement as to whether or not it fit the definition based on what was presented. From my perspective, if it's a allowed use, then the applicant is selecting an allowed use. But if they're putting it in that category, but it's not really mercantile mill, so what's that all about?
Based on my discussion with the city downtown consultant who reviewed the initial renderings, I don't know that he was necessarily objecting or saying that they didn't meet the mercantile mill architectural style, which is an approved style in the downtown. But he did have some pretty significant comments. I provided some markups to the applicant, which we provided to the applicant. But he did feel that there were aspects of the building that were a little too modern. I think some of these, I don't know if these are stairwell features here, I think he specifically called those out as being too modern. He talked about some of the details on the building. This overhang, for example, was too monumental. It was too large in scale for the building. He never said that it didn't meet the architectural style more than there were elements that were too modern for it.
Well, I realize this will have to go through DRB, but I can ask the applicant when they come up to address for me whether or not they're going to be working with our architectural consultant to have a meeting of the minds that this falls within. If they would address that, that would be good. Last but not least, we just had a ton of traffic count information in this packet. And after a while, I was losing track of all the numbers that were in the packet. Does the impact of this development take into account any redesign or changes to North Highway 9 after GDOT is done with the Highway 9 project? Or is it all based off of existing?
I'd have to defer to our staff that can answer that. We do have Eric Graves, who did review their traffic study. I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything, Eric,
And again,
but are you
you know,
able to
the
respond to
applicant
that?
Give the applicant a chance to think about that one as well.
They did do a study and with current counts and provided how that driveway would operate off of a Main Street.
Yeah, and do we know, first of all, let me ask it this way. Do we know any changes that will happen on North Highway 9 and that intersection after GDOT's done? Do we know what that's going to look like?
We have the plans for what they're proposing to do. What they are needing to do will require modifications to those plans that GDOT is currently working towards. So they're going to have to go through some steps to get modifications to those plans so they can move the signals a little bit, move the power poles a little bit so that their driveway fits in.
Okay. And the traffic information that we have in the packet, is it based on how it's going to be, or is it based on how it is currently? Are we projecting what the traffic will be once changes are made?
Correct. That we require in the traffic studies to show what opening year traffic would be once the project is open to and taken care of.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions from council? Councilman Dorito. And before you begin, Doug, I would like to note for the record that Councilman Binder has joined us. He's been here quite some time. I just noted that I had not made that public statement for the record. So, Councilman Dorito, you have the
Mayor
floor.
Gilman. Mr. Woodman, just a couple of questions, a few. The dumpster location. Is that dumpster going to serve both buildings, including the restaurant space?
Yes, this is their dumpster for this entire development.
Was there any thought given to relocating it to a more appropriate location away from the residences back there?
So I think that question is probably best answered by the applicant. Planning Commission did ask the applicant to look at the dumpster location prior to council tonight, so they may have some more information for you. I was not provided with any updated information between Planning Commission and this meeting this evening.
I'll wait for the applicant to discuss that then. I'd like to understand the stream buffer variance. I know it's no longer here as a request for the variance, but why was it removed?
So let me show you that. So we've had quite a few stormwater engineers within our department in the past and present identify this stream as an intermittent stream. And so these colors on here show the impervious setback and the city's buffer as well as the state's buffer on this stream. After the first Planning Commission meeting on April 14th, when the Planning Commission tabled the item and asked the applicant to go back and work with staff, staff agreed to go back out to the site and go back and look at the stream. And when Ms. Bazinet went back out to the property, she noted that the base flow of the stream had changed, and basically it was non-existent anymore. She suspects that it had possibly something to do with the construction at the 100 North Main Street site. But based on her assessment after the April 14th Planning Commission meeting when she went out here, this stream no longer qualified as a buffered stream. So therefore, the stream buffer variance was no longer necessary.
So in layman's terms, intermittent meaning?
So at some times, so intermittent would be that this stream carries water at some periods of time during the year, but not at all. Perennial stream, it's always carrying water. So she did not find any. She uses the state's checklist basically to determine whether this qualifies as a buffered stream or not. And based on that assessment that she conducted, and the applicant also provided their own independent assessment, which showed the same, she determined that it was no longer a buffered stream that required buffers.
But
It's just basically what it is. It's a ditch.
It's a dry stream,
Yeah.
basically. It's not functional anymore. There's no more water.
She's indicated that there's really not any kind of ecological value to that.
And for the public, Ms. Bazinet is our stormwater engineer for the city, so. The parking deck. I know it's 3 stories, about 15 feet in height each story, if I calculate it close enough. Are the 2 parking decks, the 2-level parking deck, is it below ground?
Yeah, so I think the best way to see this is on one of those initial renderings. So remember, in this particular rendering, we're looking from west of Main, looking east towards North Main Street. So this is the back of this development. And so you can see their driveway that comes in off of North Main Street. The access to the top of this deck, which is right here, occurs further. As you come down their new driveway and you're heading west, you actually drop down, and the lower portion of their deck is partially underground. So the deck is underground. If you see it, if you're looking at the development from North Main Street, and it is partially out of the ground, the lower portion of the deck, if you're looking at this from Violet Garden Walk, from the west of Main side.
So you will visually see some of the parking deck?
You will. And we've got, that's what we have some, I think we've got some screening
Okay.
condition there.
Okay. Just one other area I want to kind of focus on for a second, and that's the Cumming Street extension. I did ride over there when this application came before the city, and quite honestly, I was a little surprised that it was even being considered back then, because it's a very tight, Violet Garden Walk is a very tight street right now. Trying to get onto Canton Street right now the way it is without a signal light there or anything, it's very difficult to make a left out of that street. They're not large streets, both Violet Garden Walk or Lily Garden Place. And so I guess my question is, and I don't know if you can answer this, if not, this might be a discussion for the future, but why would we even want to consider having right-of-way given to potentially extend that Cumming Street through Lily Garden Place in the future versus just removing it completely?
Well, I mean, the staff recommends the extension and to secure the right-of-way. We did that for 100 North Main Street, that we secured right-of-way from that project for this extension. It's part of the downtown master plan, and that's why staff is recommending it. Until that is not part of the downtown master plan, we are just making a recommendation based on our plan.
So that's a discussion that's outside of this application, I would suggest, because that's, if we got to change the downtown master plan, it's a different discussion. It's not really.
Yeah, we
should be
have
talking about tonight.
other road connections that are in the downtown master plan that could potentially come up, so certainly we could discuss it further.
I personally believe we should discuss it, so I'll try to bring it up through but not this evening, right? Thank you.
Councilman Binder?
Yes, because I believe the residents, they've come, I'm losing my timeline here, maybe pre-COVID 2019 or in the middle of it to discuss the extension?
Sure. So 100 North Main came through, and I want to say, I don't remember all the dates, but I want to say that was either late 2008, maybe early 2019. I know the residents have been kind of watching this, this potential road extension for some time because they have concerns with it, understandably. So I believe that there may have been some discussion maybe after the 100 North Main Street approval at a subsequent council meeting, but I don't recall any of those details.
Remember, between that and Margene Way, it's
Yes.
similar to what I had on the budget discussion last week, where maybe doing some house cleaning items, where I don't want to speak for new elected officials, but 5 of us were here who said, you know, we don't want to see that. It's not on our plans. I know I equated it to, we have hundreds of millions of dollars in capital needs for transportation. If they don't want to do it, and I completely understand why, then I'm okay with taking it out of the list. So I'd be okay with removing number 11 on there. One thing, I got an email from a Mr. Hawkins that I forwarded on to staff. I believe it may be in the packet, from April 14th, and the good thing is a couple of the items that he said to remove are removed, it looks like. But maybe adding one for vehicle access to the site, including all truck deliveries, shall be provided through a driveway off North Main Street. No vehicular access or truck deliveries to the site shall be provided from Lily Garden Place or Violet Garden. I think that makes sense. I like it to add some explicit definitions of what we're expecting. Is that something that's already been kind of resolved in other conditions?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. At the April 14th meeting, it was recommended by staff, after receiving that email from Mr. Hawkins. I believe I did make a recommendation at the April 14th Planning Commission to add an additional condition. And that condition said, deliveries to the property shall be made from the driveway off North Main Street. There shall be no loading on Violet Garden Walk. And because that item was tabled, I believe that we did not come back and address that at the May 5th Planning Commission meeting.
So I would like to see that added, and I would also maybe amend that to say, I don't want any vehicle deliveries on Highway 9 either. And I can't believe I have to say that, but I see people doing deliveries off the busiest streets. So I would like to see that amended to what he said and off the neighborhood street, but also Highway 9 on there, because I think some of our applications, we got to start doing that, because it's just unbelievable what's being tried on deliveries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council, for staff? Mr. Woodman, I just have one thing to follow up with. And maybe I was just confused as you were running through some of these numbers and the conditions, but it seems to me you had mentioned in your presentation at one point that the applicant had exceeded 10% of open space.
Yeah, so the open space on the site plan, they were showing 11%. The minimum requirement is 10%.
So explain to me, on condition 8, it says coverage shall not exceed 80%. So what's the difference between open space and coverage, so I'll know the definitions?
So condition 8 has to do with the lot coverage, and the reason why we added that in there, the requirement for lot coverage in DTMU is 80%. And so we typically don't put code requirements in a condition, but we had concern that based on the amount of development, building footprint, driveways, parking deck, impervious areas, that this was getting close to the 80% or may exceed it. So we put that condition number 8 in there just to clarify that particular one. The open space requirement, open space is specifically talking about amenity space or civic space, so areas that are improved.
So it can be impervious.
Open space could be pervious or impervious areas, depending on the type of open space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Merkel.
Chief Robinson, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, sir.
What's the law in the city of Alpharetta for blocking the street to do deliveries?
You cannot legally block the streets. for
Right.
trucks.
So it's,
Right.
I don't know how we add an ordinance on top of a law that already exists, or a condition on top of an ordinance that already exists. We would just go back to enforcing the initial one. And if there was deliveries being made off of Lily, I would ask the residents to make a call to the city, call me, and we'll monitor it. That's the only way you run them off. And we did the same thing we had to do in the city center. Where are we? Right there. I'm just trying not to complicate this thing on something that already exists. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you.
Am I taking questions now, or?
No, no, you kept looking like you were going to post a question or speak on it to John. I was just asking you.
Okay. Thank you, Director Robinson.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Thank you, Mr. Whitman. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time?
I'm Brent Beecham. I live at 1104 Breckenridge Lane in Alpharetta, and I represent Market District Development in this application. You've already seen where the site is. It's dead ends at the Cumming Street, and has the violin shop and the home next door. Current property has here the 3 parcels, 1.43 acres, I believe, is the total acreage on it. So the proposed development, you've seen, we essentially created the 2 buildings. We've spent a lot of time working with the neighbors and trying to accommodate things, comments. In fact, some of the comments that were read as emails into the record from Mr. Woodman were emails that were prior to the adjustments that we made. We had at least 3 separate meetings with the different representatives of the area, and each time we came back with one more change, and so we've done everything we could. In fact, we took the extra step of taking the 1 building that was closer to the townhomes and pushed the back building further back. Really, kind of hurts our view because we look over a detention pond now. And I know there was the question about the trees. The 2 trees that were 787 and 788 are trees that actually, in some of the context that was missed about why they recommended at Planning Commission as to why they asked them to go ahead and just remove them, not check on them and see later if they're healthy, and then we'll replace them with recompense trees. We just accept that we'll just do the recompense in any case because we think that helps our development. But the 2 of the neighbors, the current owner and the dentist next door, both provided context, and 2 of the Planning Commission people went out and met with them. And Dr. O'Donnell showed where there was 3 trees there originally. They were planted by an original neighbor, all 3 at the same time, and Judge Roberts can attest to that. But so they're the same age tree. 15 years ago, one of those 3 trees fell and took off the front third of Dr. O'Donnell's building. He has pictures. He counted the rings. There was 86 years on those, and that was 15 years ago. So it makes those trees, because they're all planted at the same time, over 100 years old. The council, or the Planning Commission, also took the note that those type of trees, average useful lifespan of them was 65 to 85 years. So we're 15 years beyond the lifespan with those trees. And he said both of them were afraid of branches and those trees falling. So that's one of the reasons why, we tried to get a resistograph done. Everybody's looking for them, so we can't. We tried for about a month to get somebody to come out. We could never get someone to come out. But I believe those trees are way beyond their useful lifespan, and to have 21 trees, plus we're going to plant other ones on there. We're proposing about another 50 trees or so. So I don't think that when this is all said and done, the city will have new trees that are substantial. Again, this is a little bit closer view of it. The existing home that's there now, 116, is the violin shop. We will take it back to restoration of it to the historic conditions, and then hopefully put a good restaurant in there. We plan on the front building having, on the main floor, a restaurant or 2. Is about 8,000 square feet. We hope to get the restaurants in there. Now, if you look at the zoning condition 1, it says that our zoning is conditioned on this site plan. We don't intend to put the dumpster in the back, but right now, as we just initially did the design, it wasn't clear exactly where we're going to put it. So we said, if we can put it in that back corner, if we have to put it back there, that's why we had to have the condition in here, but we intend to really take this thing out and put it up top. We just haven't had, we're not at the point yet where we're actually engineering the site, this zoning. So The intention right now is to put it up behind, between the building where the driveway is to the upper part, and there's some trees and stuff in there. We're thinking we're gonna put it in that spot or maybe behind the building. Truthfully, you know, I own a restaurant, and to drag garbage all the way to the back would be a real imposition, and it would hurt us as landlords. So we're gonna find a way to put it somewhere up there, but my only fear was, in the event that we couldn't, by our zoning condition, we could never put it back there. So that's the reason why we left it, but again, no intention of putting it there, even if we have to give up parking spots, because we have about 9 extra. And I told my engineers, I said, when we get this all done, we're gonna spend a bunch of money getting it designed. We're gonna design it right, because it has to work for us financially as well. I know there's some discussion about architecture, and 2 things. One was, it takes a lot of time to put together the models to be exact to what we're doing. So when we had to defer it from the April 14th to the May 5th one, we just didn't have enough time to go back and get the modeling done. But I think it introduced an element of confusion to the Planning Commission, because we're really not at a point where we're designing the building as much as we're massing the building. We do want to do the mercantile architecture. Actually, my architect's here, Tracy's here. He's spoken with the city consultant. There was not significant disagreement at all on any of it. He didn't like the glass towers, and we're not married to anything. We were just trying to give something that's visual, that shows we're looking to do something interesting and different, not, you know, modern. I don't want to create some architect dream that doesn't fit the city. I live in the city, and certainly, you know, when we put something here, it's got to look good. People, you know, if I'm going to bring tenants in there, they want to go to a building that excites them. And as part of those overhangs is to address, obviously post-COVID, everybody wants to sit outside now. So, and you can't sit outside uncovered. So then you end up, well, what are we going to do? We're going to build another, some kind of element over top. The overhangs that go over really present an opportunity for a restaurant to sit out there. It activates the sidewalks. The best thing when you drive through really pretty cities is you see people sitting out on the street, you know, dining and drinking coffee or whatever. And I think that's important, especially the further north we go, away from the city center, and the crossroads, that we have to be visually appealing to draw people to come to that restaurant. So that's kind of part of the idea about the overhangs, and there's a bunch of porches and whatnot as you go up. But again, we intend to fully work with the city architect to ensure that everybody's happy. And I trust Tracy. He's designed a bunch of buildings for us. So, same, just different view. The rooftop element that's on there is just like at 100 North Main, a place maybe for an office to go up and have a outdoor meeting or something. And then the residential in the back would be an amenity space on top. Again, we haven't designed those buildings. I'm gonna have to spend about $500,000 with Tracy to get him to design the thing. So I prefer to get zoning before I spend all that money. You can see, I know there was, to your point about deliveries, there's literally no way to deliver from Lily Garden. I mean, we're physically disconnected from that street. If somebody parked out front on Highway 9, I don't think it would take very long for the police to show up and shoo them off. So they would, all the deliveries and whatnot would come onto the property. The first level deck is big enough that whatever delivery trucks could come in and deliver and leave. I don't think it'd be an obstruction to anybody. And then as to future right-of-ways and whatnot, I think that was asked about. It's about a 10% grade to get down to that lower level. You can see it's a pretty good drop-off. And in fact, that came out of the meetings that we had originally about, well, are we going to enter the lower parking deck off of Lily Garden? And so I, from that meeting, I said, we got to find a way to make this happen. So went back to AEC and said, let's redraw this thing and, whatever it takes, let's try to make it work. And we modified the site plan to make that work. And, we'll screen the back, even though it's a little bit above grade. We'll screen the back. And I don't think it'll cause any more disruption, certainly, than 100 North Main, which does actually have access from there. By the way, and then, after we left here, the project team at 100 North Main turned around and said, I wonder if we can't make that same entrance. So I think they're, just as a side note, I think they're looking at trying to do that. We had the same architects, same engineers. So I think that's about all I had for my presentation. Any other questions?
Councilman Mitchell.
First of all, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for being willing to work with the surrounding neighbors and everything. And as far as the trees, I'm all for saving trees when they make sense where they're placed and based on the age of it. But it doesn't make sense to me when you're already restoring and saving one of our historic properties. We put a burden on you there, and then we ask you to save trees and go 40 feet around where the tree is, the dying tree that's 80 years old, when you're going to plant trees that are 6 foot in caliber. If anybody questions me, look on Haynesbridge Road. Those trees were planted 5 years ago, and I was riding down through there today, and I go, another 5 years, these trees will be absolutely gorgeous and canopied over the street, and they're all in the right place. They are all designed beautifully, and it's so I don't have a hang up with that. What I do have a hang up with is, and I know I've seen enough of Tracy's work. I know it's going to be beautiful. You've got a neighborhood west of Maine that's Italianate brick and stone townhomes. Then you've got a church with Gothic revival right across the street. Right next to you, you have a beautifully designed neoclassical building. And you've got a house there that takes on some Italian Renaissance or revival in its flair. But then we're sticking a warehouse-like building that's a mercantile. And I know it's within our design guidelines, but I swear, if I'd known we would get mercantile warehouse buildings, I would have never voted to include that. So I would encourage you, and I'm only saying this because I hear that you're open to another one of our design guidelines, another one of our designs within the historic context. You're still in our historic district. Those glass towers and all that iron up there, that cornice that the downtown architect had concerns about, I too share those concerns. I wish you would do something that's a little more ornamental right across from the church and right next to a neoclassical building. I'm happy you're here. I want you to succeed. And if you can't put a restaurant in the house under our historic guidelines, you can put whatever fits the code in there. So either way, good luck, and I wish you much success moving forward.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Did a great job. I only have one question. It was about the slope on that driveway, and you answered that in your presentation. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
Yes, sir, we do have a few public comment cards this evening.
I thought we might.
The first speaker is Jim Breen of 55 Church Street. If you'd like to come forward and just restate your name and address for the record, please.
And before you even begin, if I could, just for those of you that may not have been before, we do try to set some guidelines, and that's that everyone has 3 minutes to speak. And I would be glad to give you everybody the opportunity. If you haven't already turned in a filled in speaker sheet, you can still come forward. I'll give you an opportunity to, but state your name and address for the public record when you do that. And just because we do have a lot of people here this evening, if, for example, 8 people say, you know, I'm against because of this, or I'm for because of this, don't hesitate to take the opportunity to say ditto and save the walk up. But it also helps if there's quite a few of you to go ahead and come forward when there's an opportunity to do so. Sorry, Jim.
Thank you. I'm Jim Breen. My wife Ruth and I, who's here, lived at 55 Church Street in the West Main community, where we moved in there a couple of years ago, sort of when this all was getting started. And we moved from Milton, like most of my neighbors, into this beautiful townhouse development. And the first thing I want to do is compliment the master plan, because it's masterful. I mean, it envisioned this multi-use, multi-residential area. It envisioned the mixed use on Main Street. I had my office in Alpharetta for over 20 years. I would have never dreamt that it would be this nice. So that's number one. We got there and everybody was up in arms because we were afraid. We were afraid about Cumming Street coming on through down our little alley. Every one of us has to back out and get in that alley, just our development, which is 27 townhomes, just to get out. It's our driveway. And we've got a new development of townhomes across the street that also share it. And all the folks on Canton Street and those Georgian-style townhouses, everybody is concerned about this. And I know you brought it up, Councilman Bender and Dorito. It's a master plan issue, but that's what has us afraid. And but the next thing I want to do is compliment you all on staff and on the Planning Commission. Because once we sat down and started talking to folks, and they came out, like some of you have, and looked at what we were dealing with, and we realized, and I think everybody realized, that what was a horrible throughway is a great pedestrian zone. Because when Ruth and I want to go to Monkey 68 for sushi, we've got to walk all the way around and there's everything else. This is a great idea. So we met with the developers a number of times, and rather than fight with them, because if that development meant Cumming Street coming through our driveway, we had to fight it. But it didn't. Everybody did the right thing. The Planning Commission got together. They unanimously removed that one condition that would have required them to leave it open for now. They unanimously noted what exactly many of you have already, that is a horrible place. Today, I'm not talking about 2015. Could have been a great idea then, like a lot of our plans are, but when we realize how successful other aspects of those plans turn out, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Every aspect is not going to work out. As you said, Councilman Mitchell, you know, it would have been a good idea perhaps to have that kind of design at the time. It was allowed to do, but the fact that the plan allows it doesn't mean we should necessarily do it. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. So I'm just up here to thank everybody for working through this with us, because it's going to be a wonderful development. Everybody's behind it now. But if that road goes through, that throughway, it's going to destroy everything the plan intended, which is an excellent mixed-use development on Main Street and excellent multi-residential between Canton Street and Main Street. And it's worked. It's working very well. But the sooner that plan can get adjusted, so folks don't have to get all up in arms about this all the time, I think the better for everybody. So respectfully request that, and I thank you for your time. And I think I did it in close to 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Shapiro?
Our next speaker is Holmes Hawkins. If you'd like to come forward and just state your name and address, please, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for the time. My name is Holmes Hawkins. My wife Tracy and I live at 126 Lily Garden Place in West Main. We happen to be at the actual corner of Violet Garden Walk and Lily Garden Place. So we are right there at ground zero, so to speak, with one small but important exception that I'll discuss in a moment. I'm here tonight to voice my strong support for this plan as it's been proposed. I think this plan, as it's been presented to you tonight, reflects the end product of an awful lot of hard work and collaboration among a lot of people. The developer, of course, a lot of input from the community, the city staff, of course, and the Planning Commission. I think the plan before you strikes the right balance between a lot of different competing interests. Is it a perfect plan? No, but by and large, it's good, and the process has worked as intended. The Planning Commission, to me, I mean, they're the thankless heroes, right? They have a very, very tough job. I don't know any of them personally. I can tell from watching their meetings, they care about this city a lot. They love this city. They take their job very seriously. And in this particular case, they've dug in real deep. They asked a lot of thoughtful questions, probing questions. I know many of them came to our community to see for themselves what we're dealing with. And they ultimately, over the course of 2 public hearings, decided to approve unanimously this proposed project, which I think speaks volumes. And I also want to thank Mr. Beecham and his team. As has been noted, it's been a challenging process. When this thing first, you all have seen my email. I'm a lawyer. I can be verbose, and I was pretty upset about it. And it's changed a lot. And they have been very, very willing to collaborate with us in very productive ways. And again, I've said it before, this is the way the process should work, and I think it's worked quite well. And frankly, I think that's why we have a situation where initially you had a lot of residents that were very opposed to this project to now where you're going to hear a lot of residents that are in favor of it. And again, that's what we hope to have. The one issue I have mostly is the dumpster issue. That dumpster is located right across from where I live. Mr. Beecham, I think we all agree that's not a great location for it, for all kinds of reasons. I don't need to detail them for you, but especially with restaurants, it just doesn't make sense. It sounds like he doesn't intend for it to be there anyway, so I would argue that we should just take that off the table for now and let that issue of a variance for that. If he wants to bring it back later, he can always do that later, but no point in clouding that issue now and approving a variance for an issue that frankly it sounds like no one thinks is a good idea. So that's the one objection that I have for that. I want to thank Councilman Bender for at least raising the issue about the deliveries. I was the one that had raised that issue before. I understand there may be laws about it. Frankly, I don't know what blocking the street means or doesn't mean. I just know it can happen. In an urban environment, it happens a lot. And so it sounds like it's not the intent, again, of the developer. And so I would say, what's the harm in including that as a condition, just to avoid any ambiguity about it. But with that, again, I'm here to voice my strong support of the plan. Otherwise, I think it's a great plan for the city. I think the process has worked quite well. I think it'll be a great asset for the city in the years to come. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Shapiro?
Our next speaker is Brian Ritchie.
Brian Ritchie, 204 Violet Garden Walk. I've been here a time or two. Good to see everyone again. Thank you for your time. You know, I always like to state, because you're going to hear from more, and I just want to make it clear, we're not against growth. I mean, we are excited about many of the plans going to Alpharetta, and I would say if there's any question if we're against hope or growth, come to our house and sit in my driveway for an hour or so, and you'll see we're not against it. My wife, as it currently is, if she doesn't be careful with her back turn, she will back directly in to 100 North Main's parking lot. And that's not a complaint. It's just to say, we know what's going on. We accept it. 100 North Main's been very good to us, and we've gotten to know George and the crew, and we're working together, and they're going to do great landscaping and everything. We know we bought homes in a town environment. We know we did not buy a home on a farm. We're living in downtown Alpharetta. Even if the plan is approved, as we hope it is, we know there'll be late night people coming through, parking on our streets, and we accept that. It's part of living in a town. We got that. We're good to go. All of us are here because we love living in Alpharetta. We're all vested citizens. We all had choices. We want to live here. After the Planning Commission meeting, I was approached by someone not connected to anything and said, gosh, you know, that plan really saved you guys a lot of value on your homes because the traffic would crush your value. And I said, you know what? We don't want this plan because we want value. We want to stay. want to sell. We want to be in Alpharetta for a long time. So just know, and like it's been said, you all have done a great job. I know we send emails and things like that, but we know you have done a great job with Alpharetta, and we appreciate it. So thank you. That said, when we moved, obviously we were hoping for reasonable growth. And what struck us is, gosh, is that reasonable growth? Was when it was publicly noted at the city zoning meeting on March 9th, Wednesday, that the original design for 116.126, as it was constructed, would project 1,600 new car trips per day that would utilize Canton to Lily and Lily to Violet. And those aren't our numbers. Those are public record. And it just made our heart beat a little bit. It made us anxious. So I think that's reasonable for any of you to understand why that might be the case. The new car trips come at a time where we're already going to get new car trips from 100 North Main, and that's not a complaint. The public record shows when 100 North Main put their application in, they were projecting 330 unique car trips. It was changed in December of 2019 to 292. Somewhere in between is probably what it is. But those numbers are not our numbers. They're public record. You can go see them yourself. So the combination of North Main and this projected project was 1,900 new unique car trips every day through our neighborhood. And that's just why we got anxious. And I hope you find that reasonable. All of us, as Jim mentioned, have to use Lily. All of us have to use Canton to Lily and some to Violet. So if these new traffic, when the traffic comes in, they would be they'd affect Canton, they'd affect Lily, they'd affect Violet. When they're done, like when 100 North Main's done with their day, they're going to go Violet, Lily, Canton. And as you found out, that's a tough out at the end of the day. It just is. And we accept it. It's the way it is. What we do is we go right, because we just don't want to deal with going left. But after hearing those numbers, Councilman Binder gave some good advice and said, look, just meet with the developers, develop some ideas, and just work out some solutions. So I thought that was rightfully so the thing to do. So we met with the developers, and I just want to say these developers have been amazing. I mean, they started from one thing, another, met with us, listened to us. I've owned a business. I've had a good career. These guys do it right. And we need to publicly praise the work that they did, the listening, everything they did was just how you would want it done. And we actually can't wait to be neighbors with them because we've gotten to know them. And we told them, you put those restaurants in, we'll support you. Your residents will be friends.
Just a quick reminder, you're over 4 now.
All right. So everything else has been said. But what I was going to just say is, Councilman Merkel, at a meeting I was at, you guys might know someone come to meetings, you said something that gave me confidence. He says, Alpharetta always gets it right. And I was like, when I heard that, it was to someone who had an issue, and you just said, call me, like you said earlier tonight. Alpharetta always gets it right. And when I heard that, it gave me confidence. I left that night saying, man, if Alpharetta always gets it right, and that's the spirit of the council, I have every confidence they're going to get this right. And what I'm asking of you tonight, and I'm asking on behalf of our West Main folks, is to approve the plan that was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission on May 5th. As Holmes said, we support it, we want it, and we believe that's Alpharetta getting it right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Shapiro?
Our next speaker is Larry Bracken. If you'll come forward and just state your first and last name and your address, please, sir.
Hi, I'm Larry Bracken. I live at 208 Violet Garden Walk, so I'm on the other corner at Lily Garden and Violet Garden Walk. And I'm not going to repeat what my neighbors have said. I think we've heard a lot of the reasoning, but I want to get us back to where we were in December 2019. I was I moved into my home at 208 Violet Garden Walk on December 13. And by December 16, my neighbors had drafted me to speak at the city council meeting on December 16, and we were talking about 100 North Main Street. And we were talking about the extension at that time. And at the time, we did express our opposition. And Mayor Gilvin and I have been very patient with phone calls and emails, and I think this is the 4th time I've spoken about it. And I think we can't emphasize enough just how important it is to our community, and not just ours, but all the folks up and down Canton Street, to make sure that we don't have this cut through. It was a great idea as part of the overall city plan in 2015. It's just not a good idea anymore. I think that everyone in our area would agree with that, and I think those of you, and most of you have been out to our community, have seen how narrow those streets are. And it's not just a matter of, the convenience or inconvenience to our neighbors and our neighborhood. It's also just the flavor of the neighborhood, the environment that's in there, and what's going in now and what will go in the future in that area that could not possibly have been anticipated in 2015. Now, at the Planning Commission meeting, the project manager for 100 North Main Street, who's here tonight, and I'm sure he'll be speaking, said that from the perspective of 100 North Main Street, it was that they need the extension built, or they would like to have the extension built. That was not 100 North Main Street's position in December 2019. And I encourage City Council, if you're interested, go back and look at the video. I did today. And Don Rolliter, who's somebody that I know and respect, was representing 100 North Main Street. And Don came into the commission to represent 100 North Main Street. And when he was talking about the Cumming Street extension, he said, and I'm quoting him, "If you ask us, what's our wish for the future there? It's up to you. We can operate this building without it," that is the extension. "We can operate the building with it. We have been able to straddle the fence and do it each way. So whatever you decide is best for the city, or whenever you decide it, we're in. We're all in." And for the record, that's at 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 50 seconds in that 5-hour meeting on December 16, 2019. So it was never represented to us that it was necessary for 100 North Main Street. If it had been, I think we would have been even more forceful in our position. Another issue that's come up, and I've heard from a number of folks, is, well, you folks moved in 2018 and 19, and you should have checked the master plan to see that there's an extension planned. I've been a trial lawyer and a civil litigator for 36 years, and I know something that's overly legal when I hear it, and that's it. I mean, common sense, fairness, I think, should apply here, not some estoppel because folks that were moving in didn't check the master plan. I can tell you none of us were told by any of the folks selling the homes or anyone we asked questions about, and we all asked a lot of questions coming from other areas about any kind of street extension. And again, regardless, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So, we would ask, again, we think the right thing here is, let's just get rid of the idea of the Cumming Street extension. We're in full support of this project. We are in support of 100 North Main Street. We are in support of having the high school go in. And as my friend Brian said, we are absolutely pro-growth and pro-good planning, and you folks have exemplified that. And we just think that part of good planning now is let's not have the extension. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Shapiro?
Our next speaker is Tyler Vassar.
Good to see you as well.
I apologize for being underdressed. I was not planning on speaking. My name is Tyler Vassar. I live at 89 Canton Street. I'm a registered voter. I'm a Gulf War veteran, and I love living here. My wife Kathleen and I live here. We were here in December of 2019, and there was a lot of discussion about Lily Garden. It's strange that not everyone who was here remembers that, because it was a lot of discussion. It wasn't a sort of a discussion sometime in early 2020. What I'm trying to figure out in this project, which I fully support, it seems like these moves of moving the building slightly to the north is just a move to leave the possibility, just a remote possibility, that we could slide that little extension in there if we needed to. And I don't understand it because it seems sort of sneaky to me. It really does. Developer, you really don't want your building further to the north. You want it back where it was, right? Maybe I'm not allowed to talk to them. But that's where the building was, and it was great when we saw it, when we all met as a community, and we met. It was great. It seems like the dumpster. Seems like no one really wants the dumpster to the west of the building. Seems like the developer is very willing to put the dumpster in a logical place for the dumpster. But it seems there's some part of this. And so I'm just not sure why the mayor and the council doesn't have the authority to make a condition to say as a part of this project, we're not going to talk about this again anymore. We talked about it 2.5 years ago. We're talking about it again. And I believe you have the authority to do that. And I'd like to see that condition added. And other than that, I fully support, and we think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Shapiro?
Mr. Mayor, those are all the comment cards on this item.
But as I indicated before, if there's anyone that would like to come forward, now's your opportunity to do so. If you will, I believe you've done this before, but cite your name and your address for the
Tim Becker, 97 Canton Street. I haven't been deeply engaged on this issue. We've had some great people, Holmes and Brian Ritchie and others that have really driven this. I support this project, and before I go on, I want to compliment you guys, Tim. You ask great questions. There's great discussion up here on the Alpharetta City Council. And I also want to thank the developer, because obviously they have bent over backwards to work with our community. And I live in the West Main community also. I moved there about a year ago from Milton, where I had lived for 28 years. I'm going to be a little bit more direct tonight. Two of you have mentioned deep concerns about Condition 11, and two others of you on council who are different from those two have told me that you oppose the extension. So I challenge you tonight, let's take that off the table tonight. Let's do that. Let's remove that condition, and let's tell the citizens here, so that we don't have this dagger that's hanging over us, you know, for the next X many years. Let's take that off the table tonight. Let's do that. We support this project, and we support what you guys are doing. I moved to Alpharetta because, you know, I didn't even notice what was going on. And, you know, one day we drove down and we said, wow, when did this happen? You know, it's a great city. But I think all of you know that this extension is not a good idea. So let's just put it to rest tonight. I challenge you tonight. Let's take this off the table. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If there's anyone else that would like to come forward, now's your chance. Going, gone. Thank you very much for those of you that did share your opinions. So we'll go ahead and close public comment. Do we have any other questions for staff or the applicant before I call for a motion? I have one, quite frankly, that was raised by one of the speakers. If the applicant wouldn't mind coming forward. I know that kind of put you on the spot, but I believe I saw y'all indicate that you preferred the previous site plan that did not reserve that right-of-way.
Yeah, we don't need the right-of-way. We never really planned on the right-of-way. We only built the right-of-way in because the city said we had to have a right-of-way. So the site plan that we have now, or the previous one, either one of them didn't require, the building locations weren't relevant to the right-of-way. We just moved that one building in the back, further back north, just to get out of actually Holmes' sight line, so he wasn't looking straight in our windows.
Okay.
Or us, vice versa, looking in his windows.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, because that was something that I had not heard before.
Yeah. We didn't do that as a result of where the right-of-way would have gone or not gone.
Okay, so you wouldn't have relocated or moved the garbage somewhere else because of that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, the garbage only was there because we couldn't find another place when we originally built the site plan that we were absolutely 100% certain. But actually, subsequent to that, we moved enough stuff around, and actually the drive that goes under the garage freed up enough space that we think we can move it up there to the top. You're
right about restaurateurs are not going 2 blocks to drop off garbage, as public owners of a
No.
garbage facility on Old Roswell Street, we're quite aware that they don't go very far to dump the garbage.
No.
So, okay. Councilman Heitz, I believe, had a question to follow up with you as well.
I'm not sure where the discussion will lead us on the location of the rear building, but my understanding, also in answer to Councilman Will's question, was when the building was in its original location, the entrance to the parking garage came in off Violet Walk, and that's what it shows in this rendering here. So I'm a little confused.
So there's several iterations that happened. Original iteration was the buildings were staggered because we assumed that the road was going to eventually go through, and we thought we'll just make it street front. And then Violet Garden was the main entrance to the lower level. When there was obvious opposition to the road going through, we said, well, let's see if we can't enter the garage from below on the coming in North Main and turning in below. It actually went under that building and that was forward and that were staggered. It still went under that building. There was no moving the building back was just actually my idea at the end of it. I said, we're never going to be road front because there's never going to be a road through. Let's just push it back so that we just get a little bit more room in front. Because the new front will be our parking deck.
Well, this goes a little bit to, what are we voting on tonight? And, we're still trying to put a little fine point on the exterior architecture. Now there's a discussion about will the buildings be inline or offset? And, based off the I think it was February 12 rendering, the only one that we had in the packet showed when the buildings were offset to get into the underground parking, it was off Violet Garden. But you're telling me there's other iterations where that's not the case?
Yeah,
where
the
building,
package that we have that's before you today that just has the block buildings.
yeah, they're in line with each other.
They're in line. That's the plan we're going with.
All right, never mind.
But there was no, we're not asking to move or do anything. We're going exactly like we have it. And like I said, if you tell me that I don't have to come back, and again, the reason why we left the garbage is staff said, this is exactly that plan. If you, for whatever reason, had to put it down there, you have to go back through the whole rezoning process from scratch.
So while I got you at that point, would you be amenable to a change in condition that allowed the garbage to be relocated with approval of staff and the DRB?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to go ahead and clear
Yeah.
that up in case
Yeah, and
you
then-
wanted to make a motion that
Then we can
included
move
that
off
change.
of that I do not want the garbage there. It's just, it was one of those, it's, if we have no other choice and.
That might be a way to make you happy and the residents happy, so, okay. Any other, Councilman Will?
A couple quick questions for you. Let's assume for a second that the Cumming Street extension went away, just for argument's sake.
Mm-hmm.
How does that change your plan?
Done.
Nothing changes.
No.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions from council? Thanks, sir. And I'll just thank you right now for your participation with the neighbors. It made a big difference in everybody's thought processes along
Makes
this,
these meetings a little easier.
especially for those of us up here. But we're thankful.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion to approve Z-22-02/V-22-08 116 and 126 North Main Street, subject to the following conditions. And I will make some modifications to a few of these. Number 5, my first condition change can be number 5, to add pre-approved by Tracy Ward and his recommendations dated 2/28/22. I am going to go ahead now and remove number 11. I am going to accept 16 the way it is. And I would add and 22 has been scratched, so I'll add number 23. Dumpster placements will be determined by staff and DRB prior to construction.
I'll second that. I'd also like to offer a friendly amendment, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least offer it, to add an additional bullet point of all vehicle access to the site, including all truck deliveries, shall be provided through a driveway off of North Main Street. No vehicular access or truck deliveries to the site shall be provided from Lily Garden Place or Violet Garden Walk.
Like I said earlier, I think it's redundant, but I'll accept it.
If I could, based on that, staff, how would we enforce a zoning condition regarding delivery service like that? Because I'm not opposed to doing it, but I don't like doing things I can't enforce. And that was a residential street, though.
Mayor and council, I think that would be difficult to enforce because right now, if the roadway is blocked, then it could be that they could call, public safety. But if it's a zoning condition, then it becomes code enforcement, which basically writes violation and notices, and they have to be able to see it happening. So it's a little bit different. It would be very difficult to enforce.
And like I said, I'm not opposed to the goal of that, but when you make it a zoning issue, it becomes a little more complex. We still have issues with enforcement, but just wanted to point that out. Councilman Mitchell.
I'd like to ask for a friendly amendment to number 5. It's basically the same, but Dan, it wasn't stated that prepared by Tracy Ward with final approval by DRB and the downtown consultant.
Yeah.
Would you be amenable to adding
Yeah, that's already in number 5, so I'm just adding to that.
Okay.
That prior to that is the part about the pre-approved, the Tracy Ward recommendations made 2/28/22 and approved by downtown consultant and DRB.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Binder.
If I could go back to that previous point on the code enforcement, and I'm in total agreement with you. I know it's a complex solution, or it makes it more complex, but we're having complex issues with that because I hate that our police, which we're always trying to say that they're understaffed, to call because somebody's there for 15 minutes and they may not get there in time. So it may be good if we add code enforcement. If it's not appropriate for this application, I do think it's something that I would like to see us discuss of how we can resolve that better, because I do see on Highway 9, it's not uncommon.
On every street in
50-50
Alpharetta.
shot that, that there's going to be a truck stopped in the middle of the street.
You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, our roads were built before there was Amazon.
Absolutely. So it's an issue that needs to be addressed for sure. And I'm more of just add more in there, so then it does make it a code enforcement issue and a police issue.
And as I understand it, that is part of the original motion, right?
That was accepted as a friendly.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So that is part of the motion before us. Is everybody clear on the motion before us?
Mr. Mayor, may I ask for clarification on just 2 minor points? So I think.
Please, that's why we pay you to sit up here and keep us straight.
Thank you. I think, I had written down, so I just wanted to make sure, on number 5, we're talking about the plans that were prepared by Tracy Ward.
Yes.
I think you said pre-approved, and I just want to make sure that that's
You're correct.
clear. Okay, and then your conditions are modifying the conditions as revised by the Planning Commission, correct? Those
Yes,
recommendations?
that's correct.
Just since there were dates in there, I just wanted to make sure that we were all clear on that.
Yes,
So,
that's fair.
thank you.
Thank you, Molly. That's why we keep you there, to keep us straight.
Mayor,
Councilman Dorito?
I think I need some clarification on Councilman Binder's friendly amendment. Because and we have some lawyers in the audience, but I will tell you, but if we're going to put verbiage in there to, in effect, stop deliveries from the back end next to the residents back there, are we also almost subliminally saying that that road may one day be opened? Because how else would how would they deliver back there if that road is?
We're not saying anything about open roads. We took number 11 out.
No, I understand that, but the implication of his friendly amendment.
I don't know, ask him.
It doesn't make
The
sense.
way I took
guess.
it, and I'll let Councilman Bonner respond, the way I took it was Councilman Bonner was forcing delivery people to come into the driveway of the development rather than park on Main Street, North Main Street.
Is that?
Binder.
All right, I'm taking questions from the dais, but no, it's good. Simply put, I spoke with several residents, as all of us had, and I asked Mr. Hawkins to come up with what they would like to see. And so I said I would be remiss if I didn't offer that up because I committed to them that I would. I know it's redundant, but I believe redundancy is okay in this one because we've offered a lot of uncertainty at certain times where related to the coming extension or the concern about right-of-ways there. So I think it does no harm, but.
Can you restate your amendment so I can?
It is, let me see. All vehicular access to the site, including all truck deliveries, shall be provided through a driveway off North Main Street. No vehicular access or truck deliveries to the site shall be provided from Lily Garden Place or Violet Garden Walk. So the other thing too, I mean, I could see just waste Google Maps work is getting the shortest direction and putting it in there and then they cut through. I don't know what kind of screening is in there. I just don't mind have it because, again, we've offered so much uncertainty to this group. I don't mind doing what they said just to be a little bit more clear on their end so they feel more comfortable.
Any other discussion about the motion in front of us? If there's no further discussion and everyone is clear on the conditions, I ask you to vote on the motion. Who was the second on that? Councilman Binder, that's right. I forgot to make a note of it. It's been so long ago. So the motion was to approve Z-22-02, V-22-08, 116 plus 126 North Main Street with the conditions as outlined by staff and then as amended by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Well done, everybody. Next item up on the public hearing agenda will be the public hearing on the fiscal year 2023 budget and millage rate levy. Director Harris. It's a tough act to follow.
It'll be a long presentation now. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the first of three public hearings on the proposed 2023 budget and millage levy. Generally, we have it set up this way. Molly will probably correct us in the future if we need to change it, but we've always had it set up that we have it open, a public hearing to hear from the public on the budget, to make sure we have it separate on the agenda. But later this evening, hopefully in about 5 minutes, we actually have the ordinance for the budget and the millage rate. So this case is just the public hearing part. There's been no changes since the since the workshop and the presentations that we made. It's been out on the budget. It's been out for about a month and a half, I think. And lastly, we did remove Margie and Way because that came up from the unfunded capital list.
Any questions for Director Harris on this? Thank you, sir. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on that item?
We do not, sir.
But if there's anyone that's still here that would like to come forward and speak on the budget, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir. Hold on.
There's no motion on this, correct?
one.
The motion is held to the business item.
Thank you.
It gets us every year.
A public hearing where there's no vote, it just doesn't sound right. So that we'll move on from the public hearing portion of the budget agenda And now we'll talk about the approval of the fiscal year 2023 budget and millage rate levy. First reading. Shouldn't have even bothered to sit down, Tom.
Okay, this is the first reading of the budget ordinance and the millage ordinance, and I'll turn that over to.
Thank you. An ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, adopting the final estimates of revenue and expenditures for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022, and ending on June 30th, 2023, as its annual budget, appropriating the use of funds shown therein as may be needed or deemed necessary to defray all expenditures and liabilities of the city for such fiscal year, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone's here and would like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council? I think I get a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make an.
Yes, sir. I make a motion to approve the motion as presented and read into the record, the first reading of the fiscal year 2023 budget.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Binder, a second by Councilman Dorito, and that was to approve the reading of the fiscal year 2023 budget and millage rate levy as read by city attorney. Any discussion?
Well, I hadn't read the millage rate one yet.
Correct, that was, I'm sorry, the motion was for the budget ordinance, I think.
You did the millage rate one?
No, I did the budget. I haven't done the millage.
Did I say budget or millage rate?
You said budget.
You said, but when it was recited back, he included the millage.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry.
So to be very clear, we're only voting on the fiscal year 2023 budget ordinance as read.
Yes.
The city attorney.
We'll get it next year, sir.
We can always hope. So, any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the fiscal year 2023 budget ordinance first reading, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. Councilman Dorito? And it does pass unanimously. That's why do you mind reading the fiscal year 2023 millage rate ordinance for us now?
Of course.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the mayor and the council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to fix the ad valorem tax rate of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022, and ending on June 30th, 2023, and for other purposes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward and this time speak on the millage rate ordinance, not the budget ordinance, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir. I have a motion to approve as presented and read into the record the first reading of the fiscal year 2023 millage rate ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Binder, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, and that was to approve the fiscal year 2023 millage rate ordinance, the first reading. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And that also passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to the next item, which is a resolution approving the fiscal year 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Application. Director Robinson, you have the floor.
Good evening. We are requesting approve the resolution for the submission of the grant application to the U.S. Department of Justice for the purchase of ballistic vest. We're in need of 55 new vests for the calendar year 2022, and this would be a match, approximately a total of $54,816 would be the actual match that we are approving, or asking for approval to request the grant. Not the actual grant itself, but to apply for the grant.
Thanks, sir. Any questions from council? Is that fine? Do we need a resolution?
A resolution to authorize the mayor and the city council to approve the submission of the 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant to the U.S. Department of Justice Whereas the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, and Bureau of Justice Assistance made available funding under the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Act of 2000, and whereas such funds may be used to help purchase approved bulletproof vests for the eligible law enforcement officers, and whereas this application round is to fund bulletproof vests purchased on or after June 8, 2020, and whereas the City of Alpharetta has applied for funding through this program, and whereas the funding, if awarded, shall be utilized to help purchase new vests for Alpharetta's police officers, and whereas evidence authorizing the acceptance of said application must be provided, now therefore be it so resolved this 23rd day of May 2022 by the Mayor and the Council of the City of Alpharetta that the submission of the 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant application is hereby approved, and if awarded, the Mayor is hereby authorized to execute award package with directives under the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Program.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from council? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comments cards?
We do not, sir.
All right, but if there is anyone here in the public that would like to speak on the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant application, now's your chance to do so. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the resolution. I make a motion to approve a resolution approving the fiscal year 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant application. Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Will, a second by Councilman Binder, and that was to approve the resolution as read by City Attorney Molly Eswine approving the fiscal year 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant application. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. Councilman Binder. It's okay. And it does pass unanimously. Ms. Eswine, you do have the next item, I believe.
Yes, I do. So this is a joint defense agreement and conflict waiver between the City of Milton, Alpharetta, and Gerard and Davis. So the city has received some claims, notice of claims by the former solicitor, which Milton has also received an identical letter of claims, and our office represents both the City of Alpharetta and the City of Milton. Right now, the city's interests are all aligned. There's no actual conflict, but in an abundance of caution, and so that we can jointly represent both cities, our office prepared the joint representation agreement as well as a conflict waiver. Just in an abundance of caution, the joint representation agreement is intended basically to allow us to represent both the City of Alpharetta and the City of Milton while maintaining attorney-client privilege. And so I think that is drafted for my signature as well as Bob's, and then there is an exhibit, a conflict waiver. So we'd be asking for approval by the council of both the joint representation agreement and the conflict waiver. And again, there's no ethical conflict right now. The interests are aligned. It's simply a formality and an abundance of caution.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from council? Ms. Shapiro, any public comment cards?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this joint agreement, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
I'd like to offer a motion that we approve the joint defense agreement and conflict waiver between Milton, Alpharetta, and Gerard and Davis LLP.
We have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Councilman Binder, and that was to approve the joint defense agreement and conflict waiver between Milton, Alpharetta, and Gerard and Davis LLP. All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. We'll move on to the final item under new business this evening, and that is the A sculpture. Gift request from Teasley Place Condominium Association, Inc. and Teasley Place Building Developer. Director Rogers, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. It's always a pleasure to be able to stand in front of you. Tonight, we're bringing forward the discussion about the A, which sits at the corner of Milton and Canton in front of the, what's the name of that restaurant? Coalition, in front of Coalition. The A was installed in 2017 before the public art process was defined. With no maintenance plan and no maintenance done to the A, it has deteriorated at an accelerated pace. While there is some question as to who owns and who is responsible for the A, the two entities that are involved have stated they have no interest in the A and have no intention of care for the A. Staff is recommending that the city accept the A as a gift and include it in its ongoing public art program. If accepted, the A would go through the Cultural Arts Commission public art process and would be included in the 2022 outdoor sculpture program, which would include a detailed and ongoing maintenance plan. The revival of the A would include stripping the A in its entirety, rebuilding as necessary, and artistic repainting. The repair of the A has been estimated to be about $7,000 to include stripping, the existing paint, repair, and priming the entire surface. The painting of the A has been estimated by Arts Alpharetta to be about $7,000 based on the estimated time for the detail required. So we are asking for acceptance of this and included in our sculpture program. We're glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Mayor Pro Tem Merkel has a question for you.
At what point are we just throwing good money away? I mean, is it really something we want long-term to sit on that corner, or would we consider taking it out and putting that money towards something new? It's almost like we're trying to make it fit. It wasn't real popular, especially after it started to fade a little bit. So I question a $7,000 coat of paint. My house costs less than that to paint the entire exterior, and that's 2 coats and ladders and everything else. So I'd like to at least consider, I would like to say, yes, let's go ahead and accept it and take responsibility for it as a city, but stop there and then recircle the wagons and do a couple of possible things. One, look at scrapping it and put something new in there that we could buy for similar money that would have a better lifespan than plywood. And maybe if keeping it is the way to go, you can't get much closer to the Innovation Academy, which is full of tools, as we've all seen. Maybe it's a project they want to work on and we can do something else, but I struggle to throw $14,000 on that structure, even if it becomes a new one once you replace the plywood. I'd rather have a new set of eyes come on it. And I don't think we had the Arts Commission when this was done, right?
No, absolutely not.
So, I don't know. I'd like to see us accept it, because if we don't, it's just going to get worse. And then I'd like to see us come back later with better ideas on how to spend that kind of money to change it or fix it the way it is. But that's just my opinion.
Councilman Binder?
On that note, I kind of had the same reaction. Well, when I first heard that they didn't want anything to do with it, I thought, well, maybe we can now finally have a place for that 30-foot sculpture we said we didn't want at the town green. But now, for the art rotation that we have, how much would it be to just add a pedestal for it and then have it as part of one of our locations for the art rotation that we see a lot on the east side of downtown?
Well, for that to happen, we'd have to remove the A, we'd have to demo the A, then we would have to pour a pad for the new artwork that was coming, and then match up the pavers that are in that area. So I had asked that same question of the company that does all of our art installations, a local construction company called Horse and Plow Construction, and they said that to do that would be about $6,500 to get it pad ready for a new piece of art. That then you'd have to figure in the cost of whatever the piece of art that would go there would be.
Yeah, I mean, the A it was nice. I liked it. I think maybe because it felt like it was temporary because it was on the wood. So I just always thought it'd be nice to have it as part of the rotation. But also part of me is when we approve these places and we ask them to balance out their quality of living with the development and have green space or an art sculpture, and then they say, well, we don't want it, we want Parks and Rec to take care of it. I kind of have an issue with that, but if we're going to go with that route, then I'd like to see it maybe more as part of the rotation, the art rotation.
Councilman Hypes, then Councilman Will.
I'm sort of inclined to do a multi-step process here, but as part of the process, rather than supplanting my judgment for art, which everybody knows is the best judgment for art, as opposed to Councilman Merkel and Councilman Binder, we do have an arts commission, and I think we have varied perceptions about how popular that piece of sculpture is. Sometimes, I've heard people, I did hear somebody really just blasting that thing that was there when I was over at Dr. Hines' vet shop, or veterinarian place. On the other hand, I've seen lots of kids on there. It would be of interest to me if our Arts Commission that we have and who we look to for these type of things could get some sort of data about whether or not it is well received in that part of town, if it's something that there's some attachment to that they'd like to see remain and then fixed up, and then we get some better ideas on pricing on how to fix it up. And if the data is it's not well received, then let the Arts Commission do their thing. But if it comes down to us using our judgment about art, I'm sure we'll make a good decision. But hate to take the place of the Arts Commission.
Councilman Will.
I agree with Dan and Jason. I don't have any issue with accepting the art back to the city from ownership purpose, but spending that kind of money to repaint it just makes no sense to me. If anything, I remember when my kids were in high school, we had this art department that was phenomenal. These kids were professional level artists in high school. And I think it'd be kind of cool maybe if we, instead of spending the money to have somebody come in and do it, maybe let the local high school kids come in and put their stamp on the city of Alpharetta, get our young citizens involved, and let them do a project that they can talk about for the next 10 years or whatever. I think it'd save us a lot of money. I think it's more fiscally responsible, and I couldn't support spending that kind of money to repaint something. So that's my thoughts.
Councilman Mitchell.
After having attended our plein air event on Saturday afternoon, we have tons of artists in our area that I'd like to see employed. The A specifically, the part that's always bothered me about it is that it was supposed to be for social media promotion, of our city, but you don't know if you're in Alpharetta or Atlanta or Athens. I mean, you really don't. And I thought the artist was going to include Alpharetta in it, but that part never happened. I would like to see something more permanent there, something that's not made out of plywood that could be changed and kept updated. But I agree with John. I think the Arts Commission and Arts Alpharetta should have a say in this and how to move forward to it. It's why we created the commission, and it's also why we continue to support Arts Alpharetta. So it's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Councilman Binder.
I'm starting to see issues maybe a year or so into this because I would like to see it rotational, but who owns that spot right now?
We own the property that is owned, but we did not put the A there.
Okay. Who put it there?
You know?
You don't know?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
It's better that
It's been there longer than he's been here.
Right. It's just, it's better to appear dumb rather than to be.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure, because if we put I think we should put it to the Art Commission. I do agree we should not be in charge of picking the art there. I know there's other stakeholders, and if they're saying they're not interested in helping, I know they're going to be interested once we start picking, or our commission starts picking our pieces. So take that for whatever it is.
In the hopes of bringing this to a close, I think we've given tremendous direction to staff and how we should manage this. And with the question at hand, I'll call for a motion for the gift request so that it will become ours to do with what the public wishes. Fair enough?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I appreciate your direction, but my motion's going to be that council vote to approve and accept the gift request, and that we ask the Arts Commission to give us direction on the future art placement and usage on that location.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Councilman Hypes and a motion, or a second by Councilman Mitchell, and that was to accept the gift request, correct? For the A, and then ask the Arts community to determine how that will proceed. Everyone, Councilman Will?
Just a quick clarification. So we're accepting the gift request, but we're denying the $16,500. I'm not clear on that.
That's my understanding, but I mean,
It wasn't stated, so I'm not clear if that's what we're doing.
no.
There's been, as part of the motion, there's no request to appropriate money to use tax money to do anything. So we'll accept the gift request and then get input, which would be a recommendation from the Arts Commission for us to take future action.
We all clear on the motion? Excellent. All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, may I make one comment just so that everybody understands that, you know, we've had a lot of folks complain about the condition of the A, how it looks, and, you know, whether it's safe and all like that. So just know that you're going to be adding 6 to 7 months to this process. So the A is going to look like that, like it does, until a decision's made. Okay, I just wanted
Maybe they can make the decision to remove it quicker.
Well, they can't, again, I'm just telling you, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that I'm not being argumentative, and
No.
you know I'm not, I'm just pointing out that.
I fully understand your
One of the
point.
reasons that we got into this was because the A looked so bad and nothing was happening, so.
It's taken us 2 years to get to this point, so I appreciate you doing that. I would just encourage them that if the arts community is going to make that decision, it might be a shorter process to determine what to do with it.
Make sure that we pass that statement along to them.
I think Central City Tavern might like it in front of their business, actually.
Thank you. So that'll wrap up the new business portion of tonight's meeting, and if there's anyone here that would like public comment, now's your chance to come forward and speak. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do we have any reports? Councilman Mitchell, I believe you had an appointment.
I do have an appointment. I'd like to appoint Clifford Martin to our Natural Resource Council. I think he'll do a good job. He's a very concerned citizen, and we all know Clifford and wish you the best.
Any other reports? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.
You don't have to go in the little room over there?
We do not.